Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Coach Lois. I am a plant medicine woman, microdosing coach, specializing in transforming your life from the inside out. And today we're going to go a full hour, first and foremost. So I just want to go over a few housekeeping items as we dive right in. I want you to make sure you are grounded and rooted as you prepare to listen to this, whether it's live or replay. As best you can, be distraction free. There, of course, is the replay, so you can pause it and watch it again as many times as you want. It will be uploaded in my YouTube channel, so if you haven't already, subscribe to Lois Kofi Enterprises on YouTube. And I will be emailing it out to those of you who have registered, okay? So make sure you have something to write with and write on. I do talk kind of fast because there's a fire hose over 2 years of information I want to share with you. If you don't know me from Adam, Eve, Steve, you never met me before. I've been in the health and fitness industry for almost 20 years, part-time, full-time. Started out as a hobby, as a running coach. I was a marathon training coach, everything from 5K to marathon, and then triathlon. I became an Ironman triathlete in 2005 and started coaching triathletes as well. Then I got into boot camps, personal training, nutritional cleanses. I learned a lot about the gut, brain and gut health, and recognized that there's a lot of things that we don't know about the body. And so slowly over time, mind body work became my passion. How do you heal the gut brain that works with this? And then how do you live a really healthy and vital life with proper nutrition, cleanses, detoxes? I did kitchen cleanouts. I did grocery store tours back in the day. All told, I've coached over 10,000 people in what I call body, mind, fitness. However, that being said, I always realized that I felt there was something missing. There was a spiritual component missing. And sure enough, even with all of that knowledge and having been really super healthy, fit, doing all these marathons and Ironman triathlons, becoming a mom and a wife was really, it was heavy for me. And we're going to talk about a little bit about my journey today. And 2 years ago, I was a binge drinking workaholic, very depressed, felt very dead inside, felt very disassociated. You're going to hear me say that word probably a few times today. I was just really shut down, emotionally unavailable, always work. And the only way I could shut myself down, because I was always on, which now I know was a masculine wound, by the way, I would turn to alcohol, or I would numb myself out on social media. Especially during the pandemic, my husband and I watched a lot of news, right? And I didn't realize at the time what I was really doing to myself was a slow death. I had also had a lot of friends who died by suicide, addiction. Both my parents and my brother had died by the pandemic, not because of the pandemic, but in a very short period of window of time. And so for all of these reasons, I turned to plant medicine. So I specialize in microdose coaching. I also do one-on-one mentorship with those who are ready to heal very, very deeply and who also want to consider this as a career path. So I'm going to take you on a journey today that hopefully will inspire you, educate you, and empower you to decide if plant medicine is really for you, and also talking more about the masculine wound as well. So we're going to dive right in. So we are talking more about overall plant medicine and how it can help you heal mentally, physically, and spiritually. I also have a lot of clients who do microdosing. So just wanted to clarify that the slide talks just about microdosing, but this is what I wanted to share with you also is I have a podcast called Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, where we talk about this stuff all the time. I launched my podcast in 2020, but since I have had massive shifts in the past couple of years, now my podcast is all about psychedelics, microdosing, shamanic journeying, shamanic healing. My husband is a shaman. We also talk about spirituality, shadow work, inner child healing, so on and so forth. So if you are into podcasts, check out Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, and you can always get more free inspiration there as well. All right. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about the science, not a ton. I don't want to go into all of the science of why plant medicine does what it does. Okay. I'm here to give you a broad stroke overview and really talk about the results and the healing that I have received, the training from the medicines that I've received, but also the training from my mentors and what I've seen since I've been coaching with microdosing since September of last year. We're going to talk about the health benefits. And since, my podcast is called Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, I have found many, many benefits, not just health, from plant medicine. We'll talk about key do's and don'ts. Then we'll describe to you the difference between microdosing and macrodosing, which one might be right for your personal health and goals, even how to do both, like me, if you have felt called. And then the big chunk that I'm adding today that I've never talked about before is healing your masculine wound with micro and or macrodosing. And then at the end, I'll share about my ayahuasca microdosing program that's launching this month. And of course, Q&A at the end. So hold your questions until the very end. And if you stay until the very end, which my goal is to get this done in an hour. I've taught this class before, and depending on how many questions you have, it could go over. So you just got to make sure you stay till the very, 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 very end when I sign off and say thank you. And I'll tell you how you can receive a gift at the end. So I do ask for you to have an open mind today. I have learned to say this respectfully, because I do believe that plant medicine, being a spiritual medicine, it can confront belief systems. Some of the things that I am going to share today. Some of you may not believe in past lives or reincarnation, or, some of you may have a religious background, and I just want you to listen with an open mind. And I also will say, we're not here for me to say I'm right and you're wrong, or vice versa, just here to have an open conversation about what's possible and what I've learned from personal experience and what the plants have taught me during this healing path. So just wanted to recognize and say I honor any belief systems. Just today is going to be possibly a mind-blowing conversation, and I might see things that even trigger you. So just be present, be aware, and hopefully some worthwhile thought will come through me to you that lands and maybe even shifts your consciousness today. That's truly my hope. So I already started talking about my story and why I turned to plant medicine. I started with microdosing in April of 2021 because, like I said, I was a binge drinking workaholic, 40 pounds heavier than I am now. I was really struggling in my marriage. I had a lot of loss. I was completely losing myself in my career, but I still kind of wasn't fulfilled in my career. I don't know if anybody can relate with that. Then, of course, came the pandemic, which forced homeschooling for me and my husband. Our kids at that time were 7 and 11, and I was really just numb to life. So someone in my life who I'll forever be grateful, he wasn't a plant medicine guy, spiritual mentor, author, and guest on my podcast, Franco Romero, he said, you've got to heal, because as within, so without. I didn't even know what he really, really meant at that time. I just knew he was right. And I'd been meditating for years. Of course, like I said, I had been in health and fitness for decades. So you would have thought I would have known, but psychotherapy didn't work. Grief counseling didn't work because I was so stuck in my head. And at that time, I read this book, How to Change Your Mind, when my friend Franco said, hey, go check out plant medicine. And I really, really realized that my mind was so noisy. My ego was so loud, and I was hurting so much in my heart that this seemed like the last resort, the last option. Keeping in mind, I had never in my life smoked a cigarette. I had never in my life done any kind of, quote unquote, drugs. And I will say today that what I'm talking about is not drugs. It's sacred plant medicine. Now, when you have done maybe some of the research, or if you read that book by Michael Pollan, you'll know that psychedelic, it gets a lot of press about, hallucinations or mind manifesting visuals. I'm here to tell you that that's, maybe where in this century, in the previous century and this one, where scientists said, oh my gosh, we've got to study this, right? And there's a lot of studies done in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And if you read that book, again, I'm not going to go into all of that and the deepest parts of the science, but I will tell you that there's way more to what these medicines can do for you if you work with them than just focusing on quieting the mind or having hallucinations or visuals. What it did for me that I wasn't expecting, and this is a little bit of a preview of what I'm going to talk about later with the masculine wound, but within our brain, everybody has two hemispheres. Our hemispheres on the left are the masculine energy. The hemisphere on the right is the feminine. And I call the masculine side, the doing. It's the analysis, the logic, the ideation, the thoughts, the facts, the numbers. It's our learning side, right? And then there's the being. That's the feminine. When you think about Mother Earth, flowers, just art, creativity, intuition, not going with facts and logic, but trusting your gut, trusting your intuition. Of course, artistry. My husband actually became an artist because of plant medicine. He was never a painter before, and now all of a sudden he channels divine beings and all sorts of things. Feelings. The being side is all of our feelings, even the messy ones, not just the positive, happy-go-lucky, joy and bliss ones. It's everything. And then, of course, imagination. I had been so stuck in my left side of my brain that I really shut down my imagination. And that's more of the natural flow, the beingness. You probably heard before, are you a human doing or are you a human being? And again, that's the feminine energy. And I think 90%, if not 100% of us are lopsided. We're out of balance and more focused on the doing. The other part of what plant medicine showed me, besides just focusing on the brain and the ego, was it helped me work through a lot of subconscious blocks. True story, I worked with a subconscious mind coach for several months, not quite a year before I found plant medicine. And I didn't really get very far. It was, even though a phenomenal profession, phenomenal, Joe Dispenza, everybody's talking about it. For me, it didn't work. It was a Band-Aid. It was very similar to therapy in that respect, because I had so much trauma, so much limiting beliefs and blockages. I was shut down. I didn't want to feel the emotions. So Carl Jung, who's an expert on shadow work and the unconscious mind, that's where we have a lot of fear, shame, guilt, anxiety. The medicine showed me that it was okay to experience that. Whereas before, I didn't allow myself to feel any negative emotions. If I felt fear, shame, or guilt, I would just rather drink instead of feel and be with the emotions. So Carl Jung's quote, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." So think about that for a second. The deeper you can go into your unconscious shadow work, the higher up you can go into your higher self, into your, I would say, your potential. And I was status quo before plant medicine, because again, you can't heal the mind with the mind. You got to go deep into the heart where the emotions, you got to go deep into the body. And I'll talk about the body quite a bit as well. We also I was reminded, as I was going through the plant medicine journey, a lot of us talk about the ego, right? The ego kind of barks the orders. The ego is there to protect us, tries to analyze. And that's, again, that left side of the brain, right? It's very masculine energy. And because of a lot of trauma, because of a lot of distractions, a lot of shiny objects in our lives, it can be very busy. Then the unconscious, which I just talked about. Now, some people there's some different philosophies on this, unconscious versus subconscious. I prefer unconscious because I've studied Carl Jung now since I've gotten into plant medicine a lot more. But this is what basically is where 95% of our life results are dictated by this part of ourselves. So a lot of people will focus on affirmations, psychotherapy, reading more books, going to more training. Whereas if 95% of your results are directed by your feelings and your unconscious thoughts, that's pretty telling. So as within, so without. So if you're looking at your life's results, like where I was two plus years ago, I wasn't happy, even though I was making tons of money. It was because I hadn't done the deep dive shadow work that Carl Jung talked about and that the plant medicine helped me work through. Then there's also that superconscious. It's another fancy way of talking about your intuition, wanting you to live your best life. I was completely shut off from that. Completely shut off from that. I had really, really focused more on the doing, more on the ego, a little bit on the subconscious, even though I didn't really understand it at that time. And so tapping into my purpose, my passion, my heart in my body, that is where your zone of genius truly lies. And how many of us focus on the head brain far too often and forget about that superconscious. So this picture is a little blurry, but just to remind you, I mentioned it, I alluded to it in my fitness career. I already learned the power of the gut brain. 80 to 90% of our happy hormones, serotonin and neurotransmitters, are produced in our gut brain. And the gut brain is really, really impacted a lot by the heart brain. The heart brain is the home of our emotions, the home of our dreams. I also say it's the home of our superconscious. It's the seat of your soul, right? Depending on what you believe. And remember, I said I may say some triggering things. You know, you can be alive and be brain dead. As long as your heart is still beating, you still have a purpose, you still have a passion, you're still here. But if your heart goes kaput, boom, you're done. Right? And from my belief system is when you're born, you know, the superconscious and your soul are like already waiting to come in. You just got to be, boom, come out into the world, right? And so if you think about that, your heart brain is super duper important, but so many people focus on the head, logic and intellect again, which is more of that masculine dominant energy. So your life, including mine, can be so much more connected, so much more purpose driven. If these three brains, which is what I teach and what I know and what the plant medicine reminded me of what I already knew, when these three are in harmony, I call it mind, body, spirit alignment, head, gut, heart. Your life can be so much in the flow. You're a magnet for your truth. You're a magnet for success. You don't have stress. Anything is possible. The other thing that the plant medicine helped me discover that I completely disconnected from, even though I already shared with you what I learned in fitness and health about the gut brain, the body keeps the score, right? So how many of us read books and we do all this mental stuff, but you can read all the books, you can do all of the healing stuff, you can do all of the therapies, but if your body's still physically and your organs are still physically holding on to toxicity, it's really, really hard to get the mind and the habits to sync up because the body has kept trauma. The body has kept all sorts of things that have happened for you in life. So plant medicine helped me purge it, literally. And what I mean by purge is everything from vomit to pooping to somatic release to crying because I was really, really numb. The year my mom and my brother died and I had a couple friends commit suicide, I didn't cry. I couldn't cry. I was so shut down. But with plant medicine, I've been able to cry, even with microdosing, just buckets of tears, buckets of grief. The dam was broken open thanks to plant medicine. Now I can get emotional and not just cry at movies. I can actually get emotional and feel love, joy, bliss, sadness, because I wasn't allowing myself to feel that sadness. There's different ways that you can purge. A lot of somatic release, like shaking, shivering. All of that is what I've experienced. And as I did that, that's actually where most of my weight loss, some of you heard my story, just to reiterate, I shed 30 pounds of weight that first year. And then I'm almost at 40 now in the second year, and I've kept it off. I completely changed my relationship with alcohol. I completely have much better sleep hygiene. Just so much has happened for me, because when the body keeps the score, that's where dis-ease comes from. It's where dis-ease comes from is the trauma and being out of alignment. So ayahuasca, of course, is known, and this is talking about sitting in ceremony. Ayahuasca is known for all of those purging mechanisms that I mentioned before, the throwing up, the pooping, the crying, the shaking, all of that. Psilocybin isn't as purgatory, but it's still very much in the camp of pooping, crying, shivering, somatic release, sometimes even vocalization. I should have mentioned that as well. Sometimes you could be burping. You can even be channeling. There's all sorts of different things that have come through under plant medicine for me, my husband, my clients. I also want to pay a quick shout out to combo frog medicine, which is not a psychedelic, but it is from the Amazon. It's a frog poison, believe it or not, from their skin that has been used. I won't go into all of it, but I am going to be getting certified in it later this year because it's so profound. It helps remove, again, all sorts of bile toxicity, toxins, and it's a beautiful, it goes through your skin, and it's oftentimes very prevalent in ceremonies even as well, as a separate standalone, how to release that trauma, how to allow the body to truly heal much faster. That's the key with plant medicine and with combo frog medicine. The faster you can get rid of the toxins. Again, too many people focus on the mind. Once the toxins and literally the crap leaves your body, you have so much more spaciousness inside of you for light, love, and calling in what you really want, as opposed to holding on to the stuff that may have been there, possibly even for centuries, depending on if you believe in ancestral trauma. The other reason I used plant medicine was to reconnect with my higher self / divinity within. And shamans have been using this for thousands of years. That's really their number one use, because they and I believe that every disease comes from a spiritual root cause, whether it's past life, ancestral trauma in this body in this lifetime. They know that it's always a spiritual cause or a trauma or unresolved shadow work that you are here in this body in this lifetime to heal for your ancestors as well as for your descendants. So again, some of this may be like, wait, what is she talking about? Just go with me on this. And we believe, I've read and studied the psychedelic gospels since 5000 BC in Africa. Shamans have actually been using this. Religious groups and tribes have been using plant medicine to be able to connect with God, divine, source, creator. And if you read the psychedelic gospels by Jerry Brown, he talks about how the Catholic Church actually shut down plant medicine. Jesus himself used plant medicine to help heal. Shamans use plant medicine during ceremony to be able to connect with the spirit world, to be able to heal you. My husband's a shaman. This weekend, we have a ceremony where we're going to be able to help people. He's going to see things, hear things, and help release dark energies from people in the room in order to be able to help them heal. And that's why shamans have been using it, is to help you get closer to that divinity within, that spiritual nature that we are all born with. And it really, once you get there, anything can be healed. That's why in churches with prayer, monks and meditation, whatever, again, I love all people. I don't actually care what your belief system is. It's just like, I couldn't talk about plant medicine without this as being a very profound cornerstone of that mind, body, spirit connection. So getting into your heart space. At the beginning of this journey, I had a brick wall around my heart. People in my family died of congestive heart failure. Okay. Now my heart feels light and amazing. People in my family have had autoimmune diseases in their throat. I've had my autoimmune disease numbers drop 100 points since I started this journey, and I'm getting retested this summer. It's probably more. My hope and goal is to go into remission. And again, going within and getting clarity, helping heal the body, releasing the score with the trauma, then the mind will heal at the deepest level. You'll have more quiet in your mind, more spacious mind, and you'll stop being stuck in that over-analytical masculine brain that we talked about earlier. Another great documentary that I watched that blew me away, and I've been studying trauma because of this man, Gabor Mate. He is a huge proponent of ayahuasca and plant medicine. He says, can our deepest pain be a doorway to healing? Can our deepest pain be a doorway to healing? And that's what I found. And for me, again, this is my journey, my experience. Everyone's going to have different methodologies and modalities. There's nothing like plant medicine, again, done in a sacred way. I'll talk more about that. That can help you heal. Because if you have stuck trauma, there's a saying I'd love to share, and you might want to write this down. You can't heal what you can't feel. We cannot heal what we cannot feel. And since I was running and staying so busy with life, go, 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 do, that was my trauma response. Fight or flight, right? We all have heard that before. Fight or flight. Well, if it's stuck in your body, you're going to constantly be fighting or constantly fleeing. And there's other trauma responses that I found in myself with the help of plant medicine that I could finally look at in the mirror and say, I don't want to be that way anymore. And I could feel it, allow it, most of it coming from my inner child, my little girl. And then I could heal it. And again, all of that came through plant medicine and the coaches and mentors and integration that I'm going to talk more about. So my question is for you, what seeds will you plant with plant medicine? And again, I don't call them drugs. If someone calls them drugs, I have to tell you that they're probably still looking for a quick fix or a weekend high. This is sacred medicine that plants seeds within you that will blossom into new flowers. However, you've got to till the soil. You've got to, I grew up on a farm. You've got to pull some weeds out. You will unearth some stuff, and you've got to be ready, willing, and able to face it. There's been people with death diagnoses would go and do plant medicine, and they saw some of the deepest, darkest, hardest stuff, and then they went into remission with stage 4 cancer because they were ready. They didn't want to die. But I will warn you, there can be some really scary, intense stuff. So if you don't have the right support, the right mindset, and be ready in your heart to be open for anything, I wouldn't recommend going this path. I've actually talked people out of it because they were looking for a quick fix or some kind of high or a different type of addiction, if you will. And every flower, my husband and I call our business the lotus throne, because every flower must grow through dirt or mud. And again, you cannot heal what you cannot feel. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that you're going to be feeling on this journey if you choose to go this path. And I will say, I know my avoidance to pain and suffering was I didn't want to keep living the way I was living. It was a slow death for me. Your past will be your future until you have the courage to create a new one. So this is a very brave and courageous path. I just want to acknowledge any of you that may have already started on this path. I acknowledge you because this is very, very brave and courageous. So here's what I was able to work through in the past 2 years. Those of you who've never heard me speak before, I'll just share with you, I've sat over 50 times with Silawasca, ayahuasca, and psilocybin. I've sat several times with Kambo. I've worked and built a meditation practice around Hape. I have also been microdosing now for a straight year in conjunction with macrodosing. I've also sat with some other medicines. I won't list all of them that I don't really do a whole lot with. Sassafras is one, but outside of that, the main ones have been ayahuasca, Silawasca, and psilocybin. So just really quick, I see some people with raised hands. In about 15 minutes, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions in the Q&A feature. So if you want to put your questions, guys, now in so you don't forget them in the Q&A feature, I am so cool with that. So because you won't be on camera, but your Q&A feature is where you get to communicate with me if that's okay. So just letting you know, I saw your raised hands. I didn't want you to think I was ignoring you. So these are all the things that I worked through in these 50 sits and then microdosing along with help. It wasn't just the plant medicine. I worked through my mother-father wound, a lot of that inner child stuff, ancestral trauma, digestive issues. I was born with digestive issues, so decades of bad poop. And I will tell you, probiotics and proper nutrition didn't do enough for me, and it actually led to an autoimmune disease. Addictive behaviors. So I was able to create healthier relationships with addictive behaviors instead of white knuckling it and doing the abstinence model, which I personally don't think works for 99% of us. I was a nutritional person, so I did help people do sugar cleanses, fasting, and dieting. I'm not a huge fan of those types of things anymore, unless of course you have a doctor and health reasons, and you're really working and you're really, really committed to it. A lot of people turn to that because they don't want to face the deeper, darker stuff that's causing them to reach for the addiction, whatever it is, porn, sex, you name it. There's even social media was one of my addictive behaviors. And now I don't have it anymore. Instead of just saying I can never use social media again, which is hard because I have a business, I found a way to change that relationship as well as with alcohol. I have become conscious of trauma responses. So now in the moment, I catch myself having a trauma response, whereas before it was just unconscious. I couldn't stop it. And I oftentimes didn't even know I was doing it. It was that unconscious. I've worked through a lot of grief and loss. Like I shared with you, I've cried buckets and oceans of tears, whereas before I was blocked and couldn't cry, even when someone died. I reframed my relationship with grief and death, completely shifted that. I'm still on the journey, like all of us as humans, right? I'm not some guru coming down the mountain with 2 tablets saying I have all the answers either, because I'm still on my path. And no teacher or healer that you work with, hopefully I've dissolved enough of my ego to, be transparent and humble to say, I'm still actually right now, I'm working through some deep guilt that just came up for me this past month in my last ceremony. So I'm processing, working through that now daily. So I'm still on the path with you. Again, I shed nearly 40 pounds and have kept it off. And again, weight gain, I guarantee you, is because people aren't doing the unconscious shadow work. They're not going deep, deep, deep and pulling back the layers of the onion and understanding the roots of that reason for weight gain. Positive impact on my marriage, kids, friends. I didn't have friends that weren't business partners as little as 2 years ago. Now I have friendships and relationships and sisters and brothers that I like to call them, the people that'll call me on my crap and be more connected. And then, of course, I had a huge shift in my career, found my purpose, my passion, no longer afraid to speak my truth, no longer afraid of that intense judgment that caused me to, for years, put on a mask and say, I can't be my true authentic self because I might offend someone. So those are the main things. Now I want to talk a little bit about, and these might be things that trigger you, or you see something that you recognize in yourself, and this is a really good thing. I coach on this now, mostly with one-on-one mentorship. But if you're really struggling with any of these, like I was struggling with most of these on this screen: workaholism, overthinking, anxiety, panic, hello, OCD, difficulty sitting still, perfectionism, that right there, that whole list was me. Fight, anger outbursts, controlling, the bully, explosive behavior, narcissistic, freeze, difficulty making decisions, stuck, disassociation, shutting down, isolation from the world, numbing out. Fawn, this was probably my second biggest list: people pleasing, lack of identities, no boundaries, overwhelming or overwhelmed. I was addicted to overwhelm. I was addicted to drama, and codependency. And that actually right there, the lists that really impacted me all came from the masculine wound that I'm going to talk about shortly. So taking a look at that list can be very sobering, but they always say awareness is the first step. But how do you change that? How do you change those behaviors? How do you heal those trauma responses? I believe the best way, and after all of the decades and all of 10,000 plus people that I've coached and worked with, that if you heal the mind, the body, and the spirit together simultaneously, starting with the spiritual, working then releasing the unconscious, subconscious wounds of the past through the body, somatically mostly, through the plant medicine, through breath work, through yoga. Energy work is okay, but I prefer more of the purgatory examples. Then the mind, the ego, can become your friend. The overall health benefits are endless. Like I shared with you, people have reversed cancer, reversed aging, focus better, higher levels of creativity. I have joined choir. I'm singing again. I'm drumming. I'm playing with my kids more. Relief from depression, more energy, less anxiety in social situations, emotionally open, help quitting coffee and other substances, relief from menstrual pain. This is a big one. I actually believe menopause has a lot of roots in shutting down our feminine side of the world, therefore the feminine parts of us. So if you have PMS, or if you have chronic cramping, if you have issues with your period, pain, etc., this can really help you get to the root cause of that. Heightened spiritual awareness. My husband is now a ghost whisperer. I have clients who are able to manage their spiritual gifts in a healthier way, because if you have different gifts coming online right now, happening for a lot of us, it can be really, really scary. And you got to have guidance, and plant medicine with guidance from a trained professional can help you with that. We're also in an age of enlightenment, so I do want to mention this, age of Aquarius. My metaphysical coach calls it period 9. It's the age of the divine feminine. Some people call it the 5D revolution, whatever you call it. It's all about the divine feminine energies changing all of us. If you see people more cranky, if you see people more addicted, if you see people wanting to quit their job and go figure out their life, it's all because of the age of Aquarius. So if you think about it, healers are becoming more powerful. That's happened for me and my husband. More people are uncovering their psychic gifts, developing at a super fast rate. People are wanting to earn living in a meaningful way. Hello, that happened for me. People are less willing to compromise in love. Lots of people are breaking up, lots of divorces. I think I hear about a divorce or a breakup every other day now, for real. So it's more difficult to conform. You have to find a way to live that allows your uniqueness to shine. And you have something unique to offer the world. I believe we all do. If you have a pulse and a heartbeat, you're here for a bigger reason than maybe you even have realized, and you are unique. Conforming and trying to keep up with the Joneses and be like everyone else is only going to cause disease and frustration, depression, anxiety. But how do you get all of this in a safe, healthy way? Well, here's some client testimonials really quickly. I wanted to share these just to give you some other examples of the health benefits that you may not have thought of. I had not everybody's names are on here for personal reasons, but this person said, holy cow, 1 week into microdosing and I'm already cutting back on alcohol and the shame around that. I also have noticed that my sense of smell is improving. I've had a very poor sense of smell for about 20 years due to lots of sinus infections into sinus surgeries. So the medicine was working on his gut brain and bringing down the inflammation. So he didn't realize that psilocybin could impact swelling and inflammation in his sinuses. Then another person who had sleep issues, which I find is like most of the population. If you get text messages or messages from people in the middle of the night, it's obvious, right? I am sleeping amazing now, thanks to microdosing and Lois's online meditations and breathwork classes. I dose and meditate before bed Monday through Thursday, and my life is so much better with powerful sleep and balanced body-mind. Last testimonial, I was very curious if microdosing could transform my chronic pain. Little did I know it would do so much more. Besides decreasing my physical pain, I am sleeping better, dreaming more, drinking less alcohol, and significantly decreased my daily soda habit. He used to drink 2 to 3 Diet Pepsis a day, and now only 3 cans of soda in the last 4 weeks. So he took part in my 30-day jumpstart. I do want to let you know, because not everyone knows this, these medicines are powerful. They're working on your gut brain, your heart brain, and of course the head brain. You could detox. You could have loose stools, brain fog, fatigue, cramping. You can bring up trauma release. And I'd say that happens about 50% of the time. If people are talking to me and we're exchanging and they're recognizing it, and we talk about it. Anxiety or sadness can come up. Development of your spiritual gifts, which can be scary. So you want to be aware of that. Dreams, possibly even nightmares. So it can be intense. I had 6 months of really, really intense dreams, and I would wake up in fear every morning because my body was releasing. My body was trying to let go of the score it had been holding on to. And because I had support and guidance and knew I was safe, I was fine. Can impact your sleep. It might kind of quote unquote get worse before it gets better, just as a possibility. Potential major life changes. My career changed, my relationship changed. Coming back to your true nature and purpose. Well, you might face some demons along the way. You may have to fight your ego a little bit. Any labels, like I was a sales coach, right? I had this identity that I wanted to hold on to. My ego was like, no, this is safe. This is comfortable, right? So you just got to be ready for those mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual possibilities, right? So I do want to make sure people know that most medications won't work with plant medicines. Now, I've helped many, probably hundreds of people get off medications safely with nutritional changes, diets, not diets per se, but, changes in your nutritional protocols, exercise, meditation. So you can, if you're working with a trained professional like myself, and of course, in conjunction with your doctor, I do have to say that, make sure you get cleared by your doctor. Make sure that you talk to whoever you're going to work with privately and be very honest about what medicines you're taking or medications and supplements. Some supplements even, believe it or not, don't work well with plant medicine. So it depends. Do your research, be smart, be safe. So really quickly, gosh, guys, I always think I'm going to be done in an hour. Does anybody have any quick questions that you want to put in the Q&A feature before I go on to the do's and don'ts? You're going to want to take notes. I don't have any slides for this part. It's because it's so much information. I don't see any questions in the Q&A feature, so I'm just going to keep going. So some really big do's and don'ts in the medicine space that you really want to be careful about. Plant medicine's for healing. It's not a getting high drug, and it's not a quick fix. It's not a cure-all. So make sure your mindset is be open for anything, expect nothing, and know that it's a journey. Don't rush it. I've had some people who did my 30-day challenge and they didn't see any changes, but then their family said, oh my gosh, you're so much happier. You're so much more pleasant to be around, right? So a lot can happen in 30 days with a guide. I had one client who had microdosed on his own. Then he worked with me. He saw massive shifts in working with a guide and so much better results, whereas before he wasn't quite exactly sure. So just remember that it also helps to be working with someone that can help you have a good protocol. If you do microdosing, which I realize I didn't explain the difference. I'm gonna do that really quick right now. I keep forgetting I should do that before I do the do's and don'ts. So microdosing is usually 500 milligrams or less of psilocybin, ayahuasca. If you're working with me and my ayahuasca drops, it ranges from 5 to 15 drops a day. So I recommend a protocol with any dosage. Again, everyone is not a one size fits all. It's a consultative approach. But you take 4 to 5 days on with the microdose and then 2 to 3 days off. There's other protocols out there, but from what I've seen personally and in my clients, 4 to 5 days on, 2 to 3 days off, it allows you to live a little, because a lot of times there's going to be nutritional changes. If you were like I was, a regular alcohol consumer, right? I had to have my cheat days, if you will. When I was in fitness, we called them cheat days, where you ate and drank whatever you wanted just that one day. This gives you space to be human. This gives you space to also not become overly dogmatic about it, because the medicine doesn't want that for you. I'll tell you that. Taking a week off from microdosing or more if you're doing it longer term, longer than 60 days. And remember, as you're microdosing, remember, you didn't get this way, however you are coming to the medicine, overnight. I found for me, it was great to macrodose, which again is 500 milligrams or more, and microdose, as long as I was integrating and taking breaks and doing all the other things that I now teach, because it's a journey. And if you're a binge drinking workaholic like I was working on 4+ decades of trauma, 4+ decades of habits. I was a sugar addict as a kid, then I became a coffee and caffeine addict in my 30s, then I became, alcohol. You see, I was just transferring the trauma habit or trauma response to another thing. So to get to the root causes that were actually before I was even born, ancestral, took a lot of work. Another tip, make sure you get your doctor's approval. I already said this, and just really, really sit with whether or not this is the path for you. That's why I offer a 30-day jumpstart, because you don't know if it's really for you until you do it, right? It's like sampling Netflix or sampling whatever, but do it for you. Do it with your doctor's approval, and also do it not just because your buddy's doing it and it's cool and you want to be like him. Really sit with your heart and decide if this is the right path for you. Do meditate with a medicine. Build a meditation practice to help you daily clear the clutter. You can meditate with the microdosing. If you're macrodosing, I would encourage you to build a daily meditation practice to help process and move through and really connecting with your higher self, superconscious, the divine within. If you can build up from 5 minutes to an hour a day, however that looks like for you, everyone's got a different path. That's why it's not one size fits all. And I wouldn't microdose if you don't really create more spaciousness, more time in the day for you to quiet the mind, to sit with the medicine, create an altar, set intentions, mental, physical, spiritual intentions, really speak to the medicine. Build an embodied practice, whether it's dancing or yoga or even running, drumming, something creative, artistry, maybe do a painting while you're microdosing, to really embody it and connect with it and just see what happens. Just remember, I shared this before, that there can be some brain fog, detox effects. So when you're getting started, I'd really, really, really recommend that you work with a guide, someone like myself or someone that you already know and trust. I just heard of someone who is trying to do it on their own, and they had a psychotic breakdown, and it was just microdosing. But that's what I mean. Even just the smallest amounts of medicine are going to work with you and for you. It's just, you got to be ready for what's going to come up. The other thing to be careful of, because some people will just microdose straight through, and you can build a tolerance. You could be throwing money away. Some of these substances can become dependencies. You can be, it's definitely more common in the cannabis world, but even with psilocybin, I've seen it, and they're not really addictive. But if they become dependencies where you're trying to replace your alcohol habit with microdosing, that's not the right way. It's a dangerous path. So be careful about that. We want you to get to the root cause of the trauma response, the dependency, and the medicine can only do so much. You got to co-create with it. I also encourage plant medicine to be done with lifestyle assessments, alterations, proper nutrition observations, digestive health support, understanding the mind brain, gut brain, and heart brain, not all at once. You can even take 1 month where you're focusing on the ego, for example. 1 month you're focusing on your digestive health. 1 month you're focusing more on your heart and your emotions. And those are just some examples. Again, you'll have your dance, you'll have your journey. There's no one right way. It's just there's some best practices, and you want to work with a trained professional, so you don't go down the rabbit hole and waste a lot of money or literally piss a lot of money away because you built a tolerance to the medicine. There can be a placebo effect. So some people don't realize that. Aligned action, using the medicine, but then taking aligned action, embodying it by making decisions and small sustainable changes in nutrition, habits, lifestyle. It takes time. Rome wasn't built in a day. When you do find a source for the medicine, interview them. Ask them where they've been growing it, how do they source it, how do they make it, maybe even ask for pictures of their growing process, get referrals for sources of medicine. Same thing with facilitators and shamans. Ask them, do they provide support and counseling before? How do they set up sacred space? How do they protect you during ceremony? Because the veil is very thin. All sorts of dark stuff and energies. I know shamans who will never touch plant medicine because they've seen the damage. We had one event where a woman who had been in this industry for 17 years, they didn't protect the space. And my husband and I were arguing, intensely fighting for the next couple of days after the ceremony. And we found out that there was a dark energy, like the portals of hell had been opened up, and we hadn't been protected. There's a lot of people out there who are just sitting with people and not providing actually healing support and protection in the container. So you want to make sure you ask them, do you just sit with us? What do you actually do? How do you set up sacred space? And even same thing with microdosing coaching, making sure that you have the ability to be safe and be protected. And then what do they do after the ceremony? A lot of ceremonies I sat with, 90% of them would not offer up any integration support after. And that's a huge disservice to the medicine. And it's very dangerous, and a huge disservice for you, is you can walk out of there with trauma opened up. And I even had that with people who were medical professionals. So just because someone's a medical professional, a licensed professional, a shaman, it doesn't mean anything. That's where I want to educate you. I'm an advocate for this medicine, but I've also seen people really, really hurt in the plant medicine industry. So making sure you interview these folks, making sure they're solid, whoever your facilitators or coaches are, and just find your best tools along the way. Take breaks, listen to your body, making sure you're also releasing outside of microdosing or ceremony, getting in your yoga, breath work, That meditation practice is going to help you develop more emotional intelligence. And that's really, really, really important for me to share with you, because I was kind of stuck in a loop for a few months with all this trauma and not knowing what to do with it, because it hadn't been released from my body properly. All right, you guys are still doing good. We're going to go over. So I just want to acknowledge that. I apologize for that. I don't see any questions in the Q&A feature, so I'm just going to keep going, but you can start putting them in there if you have a question. So this is what I really wanted to talk about today. And I didn't have a ton of information, but I wanted to bring up the conversation, because what the medicine showed me was a lot of, grief, a lot of loss. And for me, the wounded masculine energy was the biggest one, ancestral, and especially, yes, in this lifetime. I had become a binge drinking workaholic because I was operating from the wounded masculine. I was super competitive. There was times where I'd not necessarily abusing others, but abusing myself, being really an inner critic, beating the shit out of myself for not making the right decisions. Feeling unstable. So bouncing from thing to thing to thing, and just not being grounded and rooted in my truth. Controlling. I would find myself really trying to be a control freak. Now there's a balance in there somewhere. I will tell you, I've found it. You got to have healthy boundaries in this world, especially with social media and texting and all of the stuff. But I was really operating from more of that wounded masculine controlling energy, being really aggressive, go, 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 do, do, do. And then there would be times where I would be on the opposite, all or nothing mentality, right? So I would withdraw, I would shut down. I guess controlling is on there twice. I didn't see that until now. Being possessive, which for me showed up in codependent relationships, business partnerships, yes, in my marriage as well. Being really upset or offended if someone left my networking group, just really codependent, intimidating, and defensive. If I wasn't getting my own way, I would come and operate from being really defensive. And there's still stuff that I'm working on with this, guys. But this was the core wound for me, and my addiction issues with alcohol, social media, and working all the time. My dissatisfaction in my marriage, my business career, and in parenthood. And if you remember at the beginning, I talked about our two hemispheres of the brain. Again, this wounded masculine isn't about men. I just want to reiterate that. I don't want any men out there to be taking offense, because I'm a woman. My non-binary friends, whoever is watching this, we all have this. And it's connected. We have a left hemisphere in our brain and a left in our heart. And so if you're operating from this, it can be really hurting you. And if you don't sit with it, acknowledge it, and feel it, and then have love and compassion and grace and empathy for yourself, you'll keep attracting business partners, because that's what happened for me. I kept attracting business partners who could sense my wounded masculineness, right? And they would even kind of like, exacerbate it and bring it out even more. Clients, my husband, right? He had the same wound. So birds of a feather tend to flock together. So it made so much sense as to why I was miserable, because I had all of these mirrors in my life trying to get my attention to heal, but I couldn't quiet the mind because of the wounded masculine as well. The ego was on overdrive. The monkey mind couldn't shut off, no matter how many affirmations books or subconscious mind coach sessions I would have. That mind is there 24/7. So I know you probably can't read this, but part of what the medicine helped me do is find the balance between the feminine and the masculine. Being more unconditionally loving, understanding, still flowing instead of forcing, tender and kind and intuitive, even showing my emotions openly. I've cried on so many webinars. I'm doing pretty good today, but being able to be more radiant. Some people have even asked me, what have I done with my skin? And I've done 0 skincare programs. Okay. It's a natural glow from within, because I've reconnected with the feminine energy and the healed natural feminine. The natural masculine, once you heal that, is confidence, inner strength, radical responsibility, taking ownership for things, focus. A lot of people with monkey mind and bad follow-up and overcommitting, overpromising, underdelivering, they can't focus, right? So when you're healed, you're able to focus and have clarity, which is one of the many things that plant medicine can help with. Feeling logical, but not overly analytical, right? Being supportive, defending and protecting the feminine, which is a healthy defensive. Having courage, being more disciplined, feeling more capable. One of my trauma responses and wounds was imposter syndrome and not feeling capable. I don't know if anybody can relate to that. Setting up healthy boundaries. So all of that is on the list of what's possible. So really quickly, and I apologize, I know we're going over time, guys, but I wanted to share some of what the medicine showed me specific to the masculine wound. So in a nutshell, what I discovered with my mom and my dad specifically, part of what happened, with my mom being schizophrenic and my dad, having to wrestle with all that, he was very emotionally unavailable. He was all work, work and worship, as we like to say, and so he was so disconnected from us. And I was able to understand to a deeper level and have empathy and compassion with the help of ayahuasca and San Pedro. I could see things from his perspective. I also got to experience a complete release on San Pedro, which is Wachuma cactus. I felt a lot of shame and patriarchal energy leaving my body. Like I actually was thrown down on the ground. Like this just happened naturally. And I could feel an energetic purge, somatic releases within a ceremony. It was crazy. Ancestral trauma, this was kind of a big one. Being able to commune with my ancestors, specifically my grandfather's side of the family, and understand that I came in this body in this lifetime to carry their shame and their guilt that they had for many centuries, that physically was stored in my body and was basically the masculine wound that I'm talking about. And I was able to have a conversation with them under the guidance of a deep dive ayahuasca ceremony. And I've even had that with my microdosing with Aya to be able to soften into that at an even deeper layer since I've been working with her the past few months. And through that process, I was able to purge. And in the deep dive, I was able to vomit and poop it out. With the microdosing, I was able to have more compassion. I was able to cry. I was able to release and feel some of that energetical healing still, right? Because just because you do one deep dive or 1 month of dosing does not mean you've gotten rid of all of it, right? So that was very profound to be able to connect under the medicine with my ancestors. Digestive issues, which also then helped my autoimmune disease. I had a lot of digestive issues after COVID in 2022. Last January, I had COVID. And I had chronic diarrhea after COVID. And actually, the doctors couldn't help. My acupuncturist herbs didn't help. I sat in ceremony with San Pedro, and that was the one where I shared with you, I have felt an energetic release of the shame and the masculine wound from my father and my grandfather and that one. And sure enough, the next day after ceremony, my poop was perfect and has been really, really good ever since then. Addictive behaviors. I had an older brother who was an alcoholic. Under psilocybin, I went on a deep dive ceremony and was able to connect with him multiple times to understand his masculine wound and his shame and his guilt and his fear and his codependency and his people pleasing. Again, we carry things from older siblings, caretakers, caregivers, mentors, pastors from our church, any childhood masculine wounded people in your life. You've carried some of their stuff, especially if you're an empath. So I was able to release that physically, mentally, and then find that compassion spiritually to understand why I was acting with these trauma responses, why I was a binge drinking workaholic. It doesn't just happen. It comes from within, but it came from somewhere on your path, on your journey. And if you don't know how to make peace with it, if you don't know how to soften it, it's going to drive you for the rest of your life. That's why I know I've lost 12 friends to suicide, multiple friends and family to alcoholism and addiction. They don't know how to heal. And all of these things helped me work deeply with that masculine wound so I could change my relationship with addictive behaviors instead of just shutting down and saying, just say no, right? I'm not saying that that's never a good idea because I want to be respectful, but I know for me that path wasn't possible. So I could go on and on, but we're already over time. I just want to remind you, the medicines by themselves didn't heal me. They didn't do all this work for me. It was the processing, the co-creation, the relationship with the medicine, the relationship with myself, healing that, connecting with my superconscious, connecting with a meditation practice. Integrating means becoming whole. So focusing this past year on integration, focusing on adding in microdosing along with the macrodosing, making small, sustainable, aligned actions and shifts daily. It definitely helped bring back a lot of patience and compassion, making more spaciousness in my life and days, healthier boundaries. Setting those healthy boundaries, again, was coming from a healed masculine. Building a solid meditation practice took me 2 years. I just want to reiterate that. Rome wasn't built in a day, and it took me 2 years because of all of the stuff that was coming up. It was intense. Just remember, progress over perfection. I improved my sleep hygiene with the help of plant medicine. I got into better, healthier habits in general, by the way. I already shared this, but I didn't have an abstinence scarcity model focus. I allowed myself freedom and flexibility to fail forward with help to uncover those root causes subtly and surely over the past 2 years, working on that embodiment. So like yoga, breath work, working with things like combo, all help me reverse the negative masculine wounds for the greater good. And again, I'm still on the path with you guys. So in summary, just really coming back to balancing those hemispheres of the brain, the logic and the intuition, back into all of those things that I just shared with you of that realignment of the feminine energy and the masculine energy. So in summary, because I don't see any questions in the Q&A feature, my vision is to help 1,000 people be and become super conscious creators of their best health and their best wealth, whatever that means for you, and trusting that wisdom from plant medicine, but wisdom within, because you all have the answers for your healing inside of you. We all have that innate ability to heal ourselves. It's just a lot of us are too busy and stuck in the ego to really be able to do that. So if one final reminder, if you can stay till the end, and I just have a few more slides and then we're done, you're going to actually receive the slides from today. So my gift to you is the receiving of these slides, as well as if you're still here, $50 off of my ayahuasca microdosing group. And I'll explain what you got to do in order to cash in on the slides and the $50 discount. So I have a 4-week program. Prep week is next week. I'm doing a VIP live event this Friday for those who maybe want to learn more, but prep week is next week. The kickoff is just before the summer solstice. And we're going to work together with grandmother ayahuasca, as we like to call her, to transform your summer, as within, so without. And especially with the masculine wound and Father's Day this month here in America, my goal is to help you have a softer, more balanced summer. So it's a beta program, so it is discounted this time. It is only $425 for this program. If you want to soften into your feminine, developing your intuition, love, compassion, receiving, abundance, healthier boundaries, creativity, improving your mental health, improving your anxiety, shifting your food, alcohol cravings, because ayahuasca is a natural appetite suppressant. I did discover that. If you want to sleep better, feel more conscious and expanded in your body, mind. If you want to create a deeper mindfulness meditation practice, this medicine could be for you, and specifically in healing that masculine wound, softening. There can be so many benefits. It's really about what is your intention. We'll have weekly group meetings and a group chat. Plus you also have a one-on-one consultation at the beginning of the 4 weeks. And there's curriculum inside of that I'm building to help with your mind, body, spirit awakening, just like I was talking about, as well as guest experts on breathwork, nutrition, specifically Ayurvedic nutrition, and helping you go deeper within. I also have my Wellness Fundamentals subscription. It's a 24/7 portal online. 24/7, you have access to all of the tools that I wish I would have had at the beginning of my journey. So there's many breathwork classes on grief, inner child healing, abundance. There's also meditations on all different types of healing meditations, Kundalini yoga classes, which has been a huge part of my chakra cleansing and clearing and energetics and releasing and relieving anxiety, depression, and those addictive behaviors, especially. Superconscious creation classes on ancestral trauma, the mother-father wound, inner child healing, and of course the nutrition classes I already talked about. So it's actually after June 1st, so it's $425. But for those of you who are here, if you stay till the end, and I'll have you tell you what that looks like in a second. Just know that it's valued at $2,000, and the future program will be $997. So if you want to save money, if you want to be a part of something at the beginning and have this amazing experience once in a lifetime, because it'll never be this first time again, I would welcome you to consider being a part of us. Outside of this program, I do have access to 4 trusted sources. So it's saving you tons of time and money with psilocybin, the ayahuasca drops, Silahuasca, that's for more advanced people, and the San Pedro and Wachuma, all in microdosing, as well as macro, but I only do the macro in ceremony in Phoenix this weekend, San Diego next month, and Minneapolis in August. So if you want to do deep dives, I have amazing sources. So I don't see any questions in the Q&A feature, and I'm humbly apologizing for going over. Does anybody have any questions? Last call. You guys have been great. I must have been really thorough. So I just want to mention that I do have lots of referrals if you are here in the US, or if you want to come fly and be here with me. I'm actually going to be doing a Lois and Friends ayahuasca 3-night ceremony and Joshua Tree this September. And then I have monthly events as well as mentorship with people who would want to come to San Diego. And yes, I do, Ginger. The best way to answer that question is to book a consultation with me. I saw your question. So you can book a free consultation on my website. I will drop that link in the chat. So we have monthly psilocybin mushroom events here in San Diego. This weekend in Phoenix, we're going to work on the father wound or the masculine wound. August 12th in Minnesota. So I think someone said they were from Chicago. So if you want to come and be a part of that, and then of course I have other referrals upon request. So with that, if you are still here, before I close with a positive quote by Confucius, I want you to email me at lois@loiscoffee.com, ask for the slides. And then if you want to be in the Aya group that I just talked about, if you email that, also ask for the discounted rate, all in that email. So you got to email me in the next 5 minutes. So if I don't have the email by 2:50, it's 2:44. So 2:50 Pacific Standard Time. You won't qualify for it, but email me, ask for the slides. And then if you're interested in the ayahuasca beta group, also add that you're interested in that and that you would like to receive the $50 discount off of the current price. So as I said, remember, no matter where you go, there you are. No matter where you go, there you are. So in my journey, in my quest to healing myself, I tried a lot of things. I moved from one state to another thinking that that was going to make me happier. And it's all within. All of your healing lies within. You just got to decide to take that brave and courageous journey and really, really change your external world is when you heal and feel what's going on internally. All right, Ginger, Lori, Ed, Eileen, any questions before we hop off? And I just dropped the link in the chat for those of you who want that free consultation. Okay, cool. Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you, Ginger. Thank you, Eileen. Thanks for staying extra long. I appreciate you. And share this information with people that may be struggling, especially if they just lost their father, if they've lost a grandparents, a grandfather, male mentors who may have been abusive or hurtful in their life, and they're really struggling with that scarcity, that trauma response of defensiveness, control, go, 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 push, 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 especially in sales or business. Oh my gosh, I've seen so many women like that. And so women, men alike are impacted by this. And I really just have a huge heart for helping people be able to work through that masculine wound, especially with Father's Day coming up here in America. So thanks, guys. Have a beautiful day. Have a great weekend, great week rather, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye for now.